welcome to this web-based learning program about how to make comics. You probably already know a bit about it since you found this page. You may even know more than me, but I hope this little video series will give you some inspiration and maybe help you look at some new perspective on things. My first 48-page comic was published in Denmark in 1999. Since then, I've been working full-time as a freelance writer, illustrator, and comic book artist. And last year, my graphic novel, The Devil's Concubine, was released in the US from IDW Publishing. In my 13 years or so of experience, I've read tons of books on writing and drawing, but this video format is a really cool way for me to share some of my experiences with you in a sort of easily accessible way. Now, while there are plenty of tutorials out there for artists and writers, I have yet to see something that covers all the bases in making comics. What's so great about making comics is that you can tell any story without spending a dime. You can have three-headed monsters, exploding spaceships, or hordes of gun-toting elephants. Anything you want, as long as you can draw it. And if you can't draw it right now, well, I have a few tips for you. I'll also be going over how to write and plan your story so you don't end up in the ditch like so many other aspiring comic book artists. I'm constantly learning new things myself, and I try to share what I learn as much as possible, both here and on my personal webpage. I'll also be available for questions or comments to these videos, so to be sure to check the comments below for more. In this first episode, we're going to be talking about getting started on your story. In other episodes, we'll be going over script formats, planning your story, sketching, inking, layouts, texting, coloring, anything you want to know. I'll try to be as practical as possible. I'm not here to tell you how you should make comics. I'll just tell you how I go about it and see if you can't pick up a trick or two, okay? So let's get started. A lot of cartoonists start with a blank page and a vague idea of what they want to do. I don't recommend doing that. What usually happens is you're all fired up when you draw the first page or two, then the story gets stuck or your interest dwindles. Usually when you get to something that's hard to draw. Now, while there are creators out there who do great work without so much as a written outline, I will always work out a script before I start with the drawing. This doesn't have to be a full script with each picture described, especially if you're going to be drawing it yourself. There are no rules to how your script should look, but looking at movie scripts can be an inspiration. When you open up a new document on your computer or in your notebook, you sort of have the same problem as I talked about earlier, the blank page. A blank page is never a good place to start. When I start a new story, I usually have a bunch of ideas, characters, or scenes in my head. It can be a location, it could be a piece of dialogue. So what I do is I try to get some of that down on paper. Get a notebook for the project and keep it with you at all times. Write down ideas, do little sketches, maybe put in a clipping or an image that inspires you. This is one of my favorite parts of cooking up a story. Everything is possible. Nothing is set in stone. After a while, you need to take a look at your list of ingredients, see what kind of dish you're making. You'll find that not all of it belongs in the pot. You can make a little mind map with notes and see if you can't make some more sense of it all. The great thing about comics is you can do basically whatever you want. It doesn't cost a thing, just hard work. But you have to limit yourself in a way or your story probably won't make any sense. One of the first things to decide is genre. Is it a romance? A space opera? A detective story? Maybe there's a particular film or book you can use as inspiration to sort of set you off. Perhaps there's a style, a tone, or a plot structure that you can borrow. Don't worry about stealing. Your story will be your story. More about stealing in lesson 5. Okay, so now you know what kind of story you want to make. The next thing to decide is who is it about? Every story has a main character. Now, we go over character design in lesson 4, but that's more about the visuals. Right now, let's focus on the story. A story, any story, is about somebody who wants something and is having trouble getting it. Stuff happens, things get in the way, so he has to work even harder to achieve his goal. Maybe he gets what he wants. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he gets what he wants, but finds out it wasn't what he wanted after all. Here's a little checklist of what you need before you start working on your script. 1. A genre. 2. A main character. 3. A setting. 4. A beginning. 5. A middle. 6. An end. You don't need to be absolutely sure about everything on this list. You can still change things around later, but having an idea about this helps tremendously. The great thing about working on the computer is you can undo everything and move everything around in your document. That's a lot harder to do once you start drawing. So make sure you get the structure of your story right before you start drawing page 1. Sometimes you need to get to know your characters a little bit better before you start writing. We'll go over character design in lesson 4, but right now, if you're not turned off completely by the amount of work, it's time to start writing your script. So, on to lesson 2.